Hey guys, back here at Birdman's Garage. So one thing we've been working a lot on, or I've been working a lot on with my buddy Garrett from Ranch and Hot Rods, is the Demon. So built this car, got it from a friend up here, been working on it, built it, I say built it, but pulled it out of the desert, did all the mechanical, put a new engine in it, got it running. You know, it runs great, but it's always had this little bit of a tick in the top end of the engine. Not anything in the lower end, not a tap, not a bang, but getting on it, tick goes away. Letting off, it kind of taps again, like one of the lifters is not filling up or getting loaded properly. So ended up pulling the intake off because I was going to check that. Well, then I started looking through parts and ended up having this full bushing kit for the front end. So thought, well, why the heck not just pull the entire front end apart and rebuild it, get all the bushings in. I mean, I had this stuff before, but I was in kind of a hurry to get it together, so didn't do it. So now I've taken everything out, put new bushings in the upper A-arms, the lower control arms, the strut rods, pivot pins, all that stuff, painted up and cleaned up the spindles. Had an issue with the strut rods. On the old ones, I pulled the nut off here on both sides and the threads were completely stripped out of them. So they were just kind of sitting in there. Looked around, was gonna get some originals, hard to find, or just as expensive as getting upgraded ones. Watched a video and ended up deciding on firm feel, heavy duty strut rods for this. So got that with the nylon bushings, got those all put in. Also on the bottom of the, and it's not pretty, but on the bottom of the lower control arms here, I did add the support. I welded a couple little plates on there and tightened up that pivot pin area. One thing that I did find with this, after ordering all the parts for it, these lower ball joint pieces, the holes in the lower ball joint, well, the bolt fits now, you can see, but they had a slight taper to them and the bolt would not fit through. So I think that's why I didn't replace them originally. Anyway, so I went back to the hardware store, got a drill bit. I think it's a 9/16, I think it was, 7/16, 9/16. Ended up, just needed to take a tiny bit out. So drilled those holes out. So now those bolts go through. So the plan now is to get these guys back together. One thing we also did, or two things, we actually ended up putting some Hedman headers in. I got a used set from a buddy of mine up in Menifee near me here. And another big thing was this power steering box. Power steering pump works great. The box leaked out the front right where the steering shaft hooks on. So never had it hooked up. So ended up, I had that, but never put it in because it was just didn't have the room and the time. But I got the power steering box put in as well. Don't ask me how, but we somehow got the header, the power steering box and all that stuff up in there with only having to loosen one of the engine mount bolts or nuts and pry the engine up about a 1/2 inch, and then everything kind of fit in. One thing that did happen was the power steering box I got sent is a little bit different. The original one, which I kept out here for a sweet little paperweight, you can see here, it's all the same size here. The new one I got was about this size, and about here, it stepped up about 1/8 of an inch and was thicker. So when I went to bolt it in, the holes didn't line up because it was hitting on the bottom where the metal was higher. So I had to go back in with a grinder and grind some of that out. You know, I thought about wearing it too thin, but I figured, you know what, I'm gonna do it, see what happens. It worked out well. I imagine it's only extra metal there for some reason, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll blow a hole in it and shoot power steering fluid everywhere, and I'll be driving manual again for a while. Anyway, those are things we're working on with the Demon, just trying to get it tightened up, back together, and back on the road.